The Southern Africa Telecommunication Networks and Applications Conference is underway at Skukuza Safari Lodge and Game Drive in Mpumalanga. The gathering is a leading ICT conference where industry, academia and operators share their views on the latest trends and developments. SABC Economics news reporter and anchor Nompumelelo Siziba is at the conference and joins us live. Nompu, thank you so much for joining us. It's all about technology, all about AI. How has the program commenced so far and what has been said that's of interest?
Thanks very much, Diabo. Yes, well, it's very interesting indeed, if a little bit highbrow, but essentially what is important that's coming out of this conference is that industry leaders and academics and other participants are speaking about ICT trends that are taking place and talking about finding solutions, digital solutions to some of the problems that we have here in South Africa and on the wider continent. So they're talking about issues around really being ahead of the curve. Apparently South Africa has been slow in terms of its development, with one speaker talking about how load shedding was actually responsible for us going down in the rankings in terms of our investment in the area of AI and our development in that arena. But earlier we did have a professor, Professor Benjamin Rosman from Wits University, speaking about AI and how important it is that Africans take ownership of AI development in order to address African solutions rather than relying on the experts and professionals in places like Silicon Valley or India and other places. We should take that and possess it ourselves. So without any further ado, I do have him by my side to speak to us. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us. So, of course, earlier you were speaking about the importance of Africans, taking possession of AI technology so that they can ensure that they find solutions to African problems. Tell us more about that.
Exactly. Thanks so much. AI is such a transformative technology. It's all about adding intelligence to things. And this is how we solve hard problems, is we throw more of our own intelligence at it. And so if we've got the tools to do that as well, why wouldn't we? Now, what we don't want to just do is kind of let this happen in the background and we're trying to solve other problems. We need to connect the dots here. But also we need to make sure that, again, we're not just using off-the-shelf things that might not be the appropriate solution. So we need the expertise here to be using what exists. We need to be building our own solutions. We've got to take ownership here and realize that there's such big stakes, such high stakes, that we've got to really tie this all together to solve our big problems.
So that's the theory, but what about the practice? How are we doing in terms of, human capacity in this regard, as well as investment therein as well?
So it's been really exciting to see what's happening. There's huge amounts happening kind of in a very short space of time. The one initiative I've been very involved in, which I helped start, is called the Deep Learning Indaba. And this is a Pan-African movement that's now kind of running in some way or another in about 47 different African countries. There's tens of thousands of people kind of connected as a network that all know each other. So this is really exciting because now there's a substrate across Africa of people doing really cool things and exchanging ideas. So based on this, there's been more and more funding flowing into the continent as a whole, and funding being redirected internally. And I think this is really important. People need to double down on this. We've got so many amazingly smart people across Africa. And if they're all working together, if they're part of the broader global networks, this is what we need. These are the people that can change the way the future unfolds for us.
So when you talk about these solutions that are being conceptualized and talked about, what sort of areas on the African continent, which we know has a myriad of challenges, are you looking to try and address?
Oh, there's so many, and you can look in any direction to see these kinds of problems. So, the kind of some of the big poster child problems that we think about in AI are things like healthcare and education, and particularly in both of those spaces, what we care about is trying to build more personalized solutions. So if you've got some data about a person and maybe how they're learning, you should be able to kind of better assess where their weaknesses are or what content they should learn from. Or if you've got a sick patient, right, you want access to more data. And so if you've got tools that can help you put all this data together, draw insights from it, come up with new ideas, figure out how to treat them, that's going to be better. Now, This is true in any space we can think about. One of the very popular areas that people are working on a lot in Africa is on African languages. And there's a number of exciting things happening in the space. There's new startups that are coming out, but also, a variety of people in the space. And what that's about is to say there's 2,000 plus languages spoken in Africa. How do we make sure that all those people can access technology and access all these amazing breakthroughs? Now, the problem is many of these languages don't have a lot of data out there. To train the ChatGPTs and these fancy AIs, you need huge amounts of data in languages like English or French. That just doesn't exist in other languages. So we need new methodologies, we need new ways of thinking about these problems, which can only really be done here.
Of course, in order for us to forge ahead, we need all stakeholders to be involved. Are there any areas where you, as a professor in this field, get frustrated, maybe because governments are not coming on board, regulation is not sufficient? What are the sort of frustrations that you have that you hope can be ironed out in due course?
Right, so obviously when things change quickly, there's a lot that needs to happen and a lot of dots that need to be lined up. And it's been exciting to see that a lot of people are talking about this now. And not just talking nonsensically, but people are kind of educated in the space, and that's happening quite quickly. Now, there are a lot of policy problems that need to be addressed. For example, in many ways, the work that's done at universities isn't always incentivized to be at the top level. There's different incentives everywhere, and that happens anywhere where you've got, say, like government and corporates and universities. And I think we need to think a little bit more deeply about how do we bring all these people together? How do we remove a lot of the blockages? How do we make sure that the correct ideas can flow between the right people, because there is a lot of friction in the system that is probably unnecessary, is redundant, and I think we could do better here, but I think a lot of the will seems to be there, which is exciting.
Excellent. Professor, thank you so much for your time and your insights there. That was Professor Benjamin Rosman. He's from the School of Computer Science and Applied Mathematics at Wits University, talking about the fact that more can be done perhaps in the regulatory environment. All stakeholders need to come together to collaborate to ensure that AI is of advantage to Africans. Of course, discussion was had about the negatives of AI as well, because AI is essentially a situation where computers have been trained to do certain tasks, but generative AI then talks about computers now having the ability to now think on their own and actually come up with ideas on their own and execute on those. And there's a whole debate about how do you ensure that there's human intervention in that regard so that the computer is not taking over the world, so to speak. Diabo, it's back to you in studio.